This is a toolbox that I use when I'm working on site. As you can see, I have put some larger wheels on it. The wheels that actually came with the box weren't all that good, so I've increased the size of the wheel, which has helped tremendously when you're moving it about. You can see that the top drawer is not that tidy, but I can usually find everything that I need. So I've got a pair of side cutters. That is an handle for an hacksaw blade, which is very useful if you need to get in some confined spaces. Slotted screwdriver, voltage tester. That's a deburring tool, which is handy for removing burrs from pipes or pieces of metal that you cut. Then got a pair of Knipex mini bolt cutters, a pair of Teng pliers, a pair of scissors. Now these scissors are quite good actually, because they will virtually cut anything. I actually bought these off a guy that came to the door. He was unemployed and he was trying to make some money. So I did feel sorry for him, so I bought these scissors. They weren't cheap, they were about £5, which I thought was expensive, but they are actually very good. After speaking to a guy at work, he says that they actually use these in hospitals for cutting the plaster off. When you have like a broken arm or something, they will use this to cut the plaster of Paris off afterwards. So these are incredibly sharp. Got a mini hacksaw, Stanley knife, insulation tape, tape measure. Then got a Zeus guide, which is very handy. We've then got a risk assessment book. Got an head torch, which is useful to put on your safety hat or on your helmet. Plastic pipe cutter. So we've got a selection of screwdrivers. That just helps to keep the toolbox dry. Got a set of cleaners there for a torch. Circlip pliers. More screwdrivers. We've then got a lock. I do have quite a few of these. These are handy because sometimes you do need to lock something off, but I must admit that on site they do normally provide the padlocks, but I have a few in there anyway just in case. More screwdrivers. Small tap wrench. An electrician's adjustable. Got a set of extended Weaver X keys that have the short head on. They are very useful for getting in some spaces where it's a bit tight. They're metric, by the way. Then got metric X keys or Allen keys depending on where you live. Then got a set of Imperial X keys. You'll notice that that one has been cut down. That used to be that kind of length. So that's why I have the Wearer ones that have the shorter head on, because sometimes you can't get in some spaces and you end up cutting your Allen keys down like that. Then got a few assorted bits. Piece of steel that I've been saving, I don't know what for. Another X key. Got a stainless steel reducer there, but I don't actually use that as a reducer. There is one particular job that I do, I think it's knocking a bearing out, and that is the exact perfect size to fit over the bearing, so that's why that is in there. Then got an asp for locking out electrical panels. That one is a pneumatic lock off. I'll show you how this works actually. That is a quick release connector that you'd find on pneumatics. So you find the slot that that fits in, slot it into position, close that, and then you lock that with your padlock, and that will prevent anybody from plugging that back in again. So that can be an handy piece of kit. Got the engineer square, small one. Then got a 6-inch rule that's metric on one side and imperial on the other. And then a 12-inch rule that again is metric on one side and imperial on the other. Then got a couple of jigsaw blades. It's always handy having a couple of pens in your box. In fact, I've got quite a few of those, got 3 of those. Then got another pen, some PTFE tape, which always comes in useful. Then I have these little trays that have all sorts of bits in. So that's got quite a lot of centre drills in that packet. There's about 6 or 7 in there. And then a couple of cabinet keys for getting in cabinets. And there's another one. And then a couple of hardened steel wedges. And they are incredibly handy if you're ever doing any kind of fitting work, any kind of mechanical maintenance. You can use these quite a lot for separating joints. If you're doing any part work and you need to get a gasket in, you can usually knock 1 or 2 of those in and it will spread the joint sufficiently for you to get your gasket in, so they are incredibly useful. Then got a few pneumatic fittings. That can be handy. Sometimes you'll go to use an airline and it will have a female on the end when you need a male, so that will convert it. Then got a few other pneumatic fittings, nothing special really. I like to keep a couple of spare aerosol nozzles in the box, because a lot of times you'll go to pick a can of spray paint up to spray something and somebody will not have inverted the can and sprayed it, so the nozzle will no longer work. So it's always a good idea to have a couple of spare ones like that in your box. Then got a scriber, a Dura ink marker, which is a very good marker. It has a very thin tip on that. I have done a video on these actually because they're so good, but you can see that you can actually get through a really small hole with that and quite a deep hole to actually mark it, so that's an handy marker to have. Then got a small torch, a few various markers and pens. That is a pair of feeler gauges. Which can be handy. And then I've just got a few various things in there, like some spare batteries for the torch, things like that. Also got a magnet there on the inside. I always like to carry one of these with me, that can be very useful. And then in here we have the digital vernier, which is useful if you need to do any accurate measuring. So that's the first drawer done. We're now on to the second drawer. We'll start off over here with the flogging spanners. I do like having a selection of these. They are incredibly useful. Occasionally you will go to a nut of a bolt that you need to get off. That'll have been there for 20, 30 years, it'll be rusted. You will not be able to get it off with a normal spanner. If you've got a flogging spanner, you can put that on and hit it, you've got a good chance of getting it off. Or you can even shear it off using these. That saves you a lot of hassle, because if you have to get the gas axe out, you have to get a permit, which can be a real ball ache. It can add a couple of hours to your job. So by having flogging spanners like this, you can save yourself quite a lot of time, and you can quite easily shear off nuts or bolts using these, providing you've got a big enough hammer. So they are incredibly useful. I've then got a box with drill bits in. A lot of the sites that I work on actually do have their own drill bits in the tool room, but having these in the box saves you a trip back to the tool room. I've then got a small magnetic torch. That can be handy if you're working in a confined space. I've then got this box that is full of taps and some drill bits. The drill bits are the correct tapping size for the actual taps. So again, that can save you a trip back to the tool room. Then got screw extractors, which are round ones. Cobalt drill bits, in case you're drilling stainless steel or anything that's a little bit tougher. And then I've got these 3 boxes. I don't know which is in each one until I open it. Oh, that's the square screw extractors. These are supposed to be better because they don't actually expand the hole like the round ones do. So they are a square equivalent of those. Then got a small bit set with a very tiny ratchet. If we put the X bit in that ratchet, you can see that that is incredibly small, so that means that you can get it in some really confined spaces. There are some couplings where you actually need this to be able to remove or tighten up the coupling. So that is a very handy piece of kit. And then that is a pick set for when you are changing O-rings, etc. Then got a piece of wire. That is quite useful if you're cleaning out any spray bars. You can poke out the holes using that. Although you shouldn't do really, you should have a tool for it. Then got a set of punches. And then various chisels. I do have a couple more chisels that are lower down in the box. Then got a chain splitter for splitting chain. A tensioner for tensioning chain. Then got an adjustable pin wrench. Then got some blades for that scraper. That is a gasket scraper. Now, to be honest, the types of gaskets that we use at work, this isn't much good on it. We tend to use something a bit different. So if you're working on vehicles, that may be okay, but it's not that much good, to be honest, so I tend not to use that a lot. Then got a paint marker and another tap wrench. At the very front of the drawer here, I've just got sorted nuts and bolts that can save you a trip back to the workshop. Then got a set of Tang mould grips. There's a few different sizes in there. They can be useful. Now the third drawer, which is the spanners. So these are the ones that I commonly use. So that's the backhoe ratchet spanner, which is very useful. It has 4 sizes on the one spanner. So I've actually got 4 of them in there, and then I have a larger one further down in the box. I've then got a set of X keys, which is a more comprehensive set than what I had in the first drawer. So we do have some sizes in this one that you don't actually have in the sets that are in the first drawer. I've then got the Werra Joker spanners. These are very useful. You will notice that most of the spanners are covered in a bit of oil, a bit of dirt, but that is unavoidable. I've then got the Roebuck Uni Wrench. That is quite a good set of spanners. They are actually designed to get you out of trouble because you can actually remove bolts and nuts that are actually rounded off using these. And on the other end of them, you can actually undo spline nuts and bolts using that end. So they are quite useful. I've then got a set of small Imperial spanners. These are combination spanners made by Tang, because on some sites we still have Imperial machines, so they come in handy sometimes. Then got a larger set of Imperial spanners. These are quite big and go up to 1.25 inches. They don't get used much, to be honest, because most of the machines are actually metric. Then got the Alfred's metric combination ratchet spanners. These are actually quite good spanners. See that they are quite thick, quite strong, and on the other end is the ratchet, and the chrome plating on them is also very good quality. Then got a small set of Tang metric combination spanners. They do get used quite a lot because it's the first set that I reach for because they are so small and compact. Now the fourth drawer, we've got a small spirit level there at the front, which has got magnets on the back. These are called scaffolders spirit levels, so that is very useful because it will stick to anything that is metal. Then got an 1/2 inch extension bar. We've got some X sockets there. They can be useful, especially on some larger items. I've then got a 3/4 inch bar for the big jobs. So down here at the front, I'll not actually take that out, but we've got standard impact sockets. That one's a 19mm shallow. And then we've also got the deep versions as well. Then got some larger sockets. That's just a set of them. This is only a cheap make, but it does get you out of trouble. So I've got the 2X bits and the 3 larger sockets in there. Then got a set of Impact X bits. All of these are metric, by the way. We don't tend to have a lot of Imperial X bits on site. Another extension bar. Then got a couple of metal cutting discs. Then I've got a set of Imperial Impact bits. I actually bought these for one specific job that we were struggling on. I've never used them, I don't think. So they can go back in. And then at the back I've got the large 3/4 inch impact sockets. There's quite a few of them. They're only a cheap make, but they do work. And in this tray we've got reducers, got some inch drive there. Sometimes we use inch drive sockets. A few smaller extension bars, universal joints. Then I've got a couple of small sockets there that are used on specific jobs. That's actually just a 1/4 inch drive, that. But there is one machine that I work on and that socket comes in very useful. Now the 5th drawer. This is where the larger stuff goes. You can see that I've actually put 2 aluminium dividers in there to divide up the box. That stops everything sliding all over the place. So I'll start at this side. We've got a heavy copper hammer, a ball peen hammer. We've then got a soft faced plastic hammer, a couple more chisels, an hacksaw blade, and then in that drawer I've got the files that I regularly use. Half round, a couple of flat ones, a square and a round file. This is a knock through screwdriver made by CK Tools. So you can see that the actual metal goes all the way through the handle, and when you've got a striking plate on the end, that does make these screwdrivers very useful. Then got an eel bar, a carrot drift. Now these are very useful. They're made from an hard grade of steel, and these are used when you're trying to align, for example, a valve in some pipe work. You'd put that through 2 of the holes, knock it in with the hammer, and that will align the other holes so that you can get your bolts in. So that's a very useful piece of kit. Then got another chisel that's embedded here, it's a bit banana shaped. Then got a nut runner. These are very useful. These are Stilsons, but the head is actually offset. So you can use these in places where you can't use a normal pair of Stilsons. So they are incredibly useful. They're made by Beta, these, but a lot of people have rigid ones, which are just as good. In fact, the rigid ones are probably better than these. But they can be handy if you're doing any pipe work, any installation work or anything. Then got another useful tool. This is what used to be an hacksaw blade from a powered hacksaw, and if you grind the end of it like so, it makes an incredibly good scraper. So if you're removing gaskets or anything, you can actually use the teeth to saw away at the gasket, and then you can scrape it off using the sharpened end. So that's a very useful homemade tool. We then come into the larger stuff. So we've got 12-inch adjustable, a wrench extender for when you need to get extra leverage on your spanners. We've then got the oversized ratchet spanner from Backhoe that goes up to 36mm. Then got a selection of oversized spanners ranging from 24mm up to 32mm. And just a couple of spur blades knocking about. So that is the 5th drawer. Then finally at the bottom we have the larger stuff. So I've got the hacksaw in there, the 18-inch adjustable spanner which opens up to about 50mm, So that is useful, can save you a trip back to the tool store. Then got a Teng socket set. This socket set is quite comprehensive and it is quite an handy set because it does have most of the sizes in that you would need on a day-to-day basis. The sockets go from 8mm up to 27mm, and then we have some smaller ones there for the 1/4 inch drive range. So we do have a 1/4 inch ratchet and also a 3/8 drive ratchet. A long extension bar, short extension bar, and then 2 universal joints. It's also got that bit in there so you can actually use that as a breaker bar by using the socket extension. It's also got a few various X bits and screwdriver bits. Then got a 3/4 inch breaker bar that's about 2 foot long. So that does come in handy from time to time. Then got that with a podger on the end. That can be handy if you're trying to get something aligned. We've then got the Milwaukee impact wrench. That is very useful, that gets quite a lot of use. Got 2 batteries. This drill is not that good. I only had it a couple of weeks and it had to be sent back for repair. But since then it does seem to have been alright. It's not the best drill in the world, it's only a cheap Milwaukee drill, but it does do the job most of the time. Down there in the corner I've got a set of open-ended ratchet spanners. They can be useful in certain situations. Then got a Scotch-Brite pad, which is handy if you need to clean anything up. And then down there in that corner we have the grip tight sockets. And then a spare pair of gloves. So that's it basically. That is most of the tools that I would need if I'm working on site. On this side of the box we've got the dustpan and brush and also a wire brush. I never like to put that in the box because it's very prickly and you tend to prick yourself on it, so I'll leave that just in the end here, and so far nobody's borrowed it and not put it back. Probably because it's a very cheap one, although it is very good. In the cabinet on the end, I've got a pair of knee pads that come in useful. Got some sleeves that you can put on your arms to protect your arms. Then got a grinding disc, some Boss White, some barrier tape and some thread locking compound. Got the battery charger and then various tins of paint, chain lubricant, the dust mask, metal working spray, spray penetrant, belt dressing, aluminium spray, copper spray and the tin of spray paint. It's always handy to have these sprays on you because it can save you a long journey back to the stores. And then on the back we have a danger sticker. So this is the box that I actually use on a daily basis when I'm working on site. You're probably wondering how much it weighs, and I estimate it to weigh about 250–300 pounds.